Hey guys, this is Tyler here with Maverick Capitalist, and we're going to discuss something, and that's my feeling that for Gen Z guys, Russia is really the only option at this point if you want a white or European gal. And this is for everyone. I know there's exceptions here. There's guys that are in the top 1 percentile, top 5 percentile. I'm talking about the masses here. The guys that don't really have access to the gals that they want to date back home. And this could also even be applicable to guys in Europe, in South America, and definitely here in North America, in the US and Canada. I'm a millennial here, and I've seen this actually gradually really go downhill, even in the past 5 to 8 years. Even for millennials, they had more options in terms of countries they could go to for dating, potentially find a spouse, and just have a normal dating life. What a lot of guys here don't understand is that what we see in the West is not a normal dating situation. It's so screwed up. Especially for guys here who are white. I know this can be for anyone, white, Hispanic, Asian, black, but especially guys of white or European origin. Many guys here are getting royally shafted because the top 1% of guys are essentially getting the vast majority of gals for dating. Let me tell you, don't be disappointed in this, because this kind of illustrates how shallow these gals are. These gals do not look at quality, and it kind of also illustrates that if those guys they're with went bankrupt or they had big distress in their life, they would probably lose most of their options. It's so shallow, honestly, this dating and relationship situation in the West. And rather than fight it, I think it's often better to go with something. Go with where you have better options for dating. Don't fight against the grain. Russia is a place I've lived a year. It was a few years ago, and I would go back there in a heartbeat. There's a lot of reasons why. That's a different video of why I'm not there at present. But for guys here who want to enjoy a normal dating life, many guys in this Gen Z category I've read are basically both celibate. There's many that have never had a girlfriend, and many that have never had any kind of intimacy in their life, and this is really sad, but this is the nature. This isn't something to be ashamed of or to be pissed off about. But Russia's a country that aligns with most guys if you're coming from US or Canada especially. In some ways, if we look at Russia, it has this empire nature that we see here in the US, and that's why I think there's actually some great parallels with these countries. But when we look at where the future of Russia is going and what their long-term agenda, 50 to 100 years, there's a lot more optimability for guys who are younger, who see themselves being able to live abroad, potentially have a family, and a future somewhere. I don't think a future is going to exist for most guys here in the States in 50 years. And certainly not white guys. That's just what we've been seeing play out over the past decades has culminated to the environment we have now, and it's atrocious, honestly. Russia is demonized constantly by the media, of course. This Russia-Ukraine situation propelled it to a degree we'd never seen before. But I actually see this as a sign that Russia is doing stuff properly. They're aligning their goals with something better, something we haven't seen in the US for many decades. And these younger guys who just feel shafted, they don't feel like they're getting the most out of their environment here in America or in Western Europe. There's huge potential there. There's so many gals in Russia, even Gen Z gals, that are looking for guys, younger guys that want to date and potentially marry. That's kind of the unfortunate thing. We hear this chicken egg situation in business. There's so many potential options for guys if they were physically on the ground in Russia for Gen Z guys. And don't let like the visa process, the process of getting into the country deter you. It's really simple, honestly, going through the visa process. You can basically do it within 2 weeks with your passport. And most of the time you'll be approved, unless you're like in the US military, you have an outstanding criminal record. There's few exceptions, honestly, that would bar you from getting into the country, but you'll find great opportunities there. And also note that the dating and relationship life very much runs parallel to the overall ecosystem, the economy, cultural life of a society and country. These things all go hand in hand. I always tell people, because there's guys in the manosphere, as they call themselves, that act like you can live in some isolated bubble in your like own planet on your own farm or wherever in a country that really hates you, especially as a white guy, and live with your wife and family and just live like all this jolly. And I don't buy this philosophy. It can work. It will buy time. Is it a long-term option for your kids, potential grandkids, or just yourself 20, 40 years down the road? I think not. That is what we've seen in other places. You can't think with this perception that, okay, I'm in this bubble. Because look what we saw happen in the former Soviet Union, ironically. When the Bolsheviks overthrew all these upper-class Russians or Soviets, and these people lost their farms, their land, their property, their wealth. It was all confiscated. And I can bet you that some of them had the same mindset that they could just stay around even with all this classism and all this baiting of class, and nothing would happen, or it wouldn't get too bad. And obviously it did. And many people unfortunately ended up losing their lives that it stayed in these Bolshevik areas, and then these peasants would basically come in and get rid of them. It was absolutely evil and terrible. But we have to look at history to see where the U.S. is going. Look at the history of other societies. Same situation in places like South Africa, similar circumstances played out. But we look at Russian gals too, and they're so beautiful. They have such great traits to them, both physically and internally. There's no gal that's perfect out there, but there's more likely many options if you go to somewhere like there, rather than stay here stateside or in your respective country where you're probably just fighting for scraps. The whole culture and society is just totally whack. And just note this, it's only you that really cares about yourself. Your family, they might care a little. Friends, probably even less. It's really only you that can do stuff. I had a good friend actually when I was about 20, or from late teens until early 20s. He unfortunately lost his life to cancer prematurely. He was in his early 50s when he passed away about 8 years ago. But this guy really sought to get married and have a family. And I know many guys here aren't really that keen on this model, but even still, he listened to what his family told him, what other people told him. He would find this gal in the church in America, in some random church in the Midwest, and it never happened. And he wasn't willing to realize these people, they might care about him a little, but they really weren't going to help him find a wife and to make stuff happen. And that's what I mean when I say it's only you that really cares about what you're able to do. And those Gen Z guys that think that they don't have enough money, they're not ready to do it. There are so many families right now from America, from Australia, from Europe, everywhere, that are migrating to Russia, and they have very little economically relative to these big families, like 4 to 8 kids some of these folks are bringing with them. Look at those people. They probably don't have enough. Even it's way worse because it's not just them, it's a lot of dependents. And you're never going to be in a situation where you're totally set for life. Unless you're some 7-figure person and you have just millions socked away, you're probably going to have to find a way to make money. It's much easier at a younger age to learn on the ground and to build yourself somewhere rather than come later in life and expect to just live somewhere well into adulthood. It's much more difficult. There's a lot of factors that you just have to contend with in this sense. And yeah, I'll go back here, digress to the manosphere. These guys like to promote this ideal that you'll somehow find some gal or several gals, a harem, and for most guys that's not going to happen. What I was going to also mention, if you reach the 7-figure threshold as a younger guy, you probably wouldn't have to go to Russia in the first place. So remember that. This is where there's kind of a unusual situation here. But Russia, like I said, if we go through many different cities around the country, there's a lot of gals here that will date and often marry foreign guys. I don't think I've met a single guy, for example, from the US and from Canada that's had a disappointing time, whether it's dating, marriage, or anything with Russian gal. There's so many options. There's something for everyone. That's what I always tell guys. I see many guys now in the military. They want to go there, they want to live there, they want to have a family there. This is quite alarming. It tells you what the state of affairs are now with the U.S. military. There's been recently some really interesting stories here of guys who've been arrested, jailed in Russia, or guys that have fled to Russia that were in the U.S. military and declare asylum there. It's crazy. But it illustrates what I'm saying here. You're not going to have a perfect situation. And also note that what might seem like a modest or mediocre situation, the U.S. could get way worse in 10 to 20 years. When we look at the state of affairs with the economy, the culture, the society, and everything where it's all going towards, when these elites in America have gotten everything they want, they're not going to stay around here. When we look at South Africa, they'll be gone, honestly. They will not stick around here. Just note that. So don't think that everything is all jolly and comfortable here, or whatever it is. We look long term. Now the second part of this, folks, is another aspect that we have to look at, and that's the future where other countries are going to, what their agendas are, not just the US. The elites don't want to promote birth rates for any European population, for anyone in general, but especially European or white folks. And this is why I really encourage people to understand that even places like in South America or Central Europe, they are promoting a lot of the same agendas that the West is. They're kind of in lockstep. My brother lives in Argentina. You see some of the same issues that you would have here in America. These Argentinian women don't want to marry at a suitable age or have families, and a lot of like playing around with younger gals. Great place to be if you just want to screw around, but they're not great places if you have a more long-term perspective in mind. We saw that situation over in Slovakia with this prime minister who was shot multiple times. Right now he has survived, but this guy was a far-right leader. He obviously stood for truth, stood for real freedom. Look at it, they tried wiping him out. This isn't like a major country. So this is just a testament that even in those countries, the liberal and globalist movements are pushing hard, and I wouldn't be surprised even if that guy was paid to try take out the Slovakian prime minister. That's a different story. Around the world, it's culturally, financially, society-wise, they don't want European people to have babies, basically, and that's why, like, you want to be situated in a ecosystem that promotes that. In most of these countries, European-based countries outside of Russia do not promote it. Yes, certainly there are non-European countries in South America and Asia that don't mind having large birth rates, but I'm talking about European-based societies here. When you look at the promotion of these dating apps, which can be good and bad. Dating apps, unfortunately for most guys, don't work very well. It's gotten so bad for Gen Zers. It was bad enough for millennials. My brother has students from Poland, and these guys tell him it's terrible. They're Gen Z guys. It's just getting worse and worse. Even for millennial guys who are Polish, they could have had a lot better experience on average. But even really high caliber guys are having issues here. This goes back to what I'm saying. They don't want European people having babies. This is just a fact. When you look at the cultural and ideology agendas promoted by institutions like the tech industry, Hollywood, any kind of entertainment industry, it's very anti-European, it's very anti-white. And this is one of the major forces that propels these younger gals not to go into relationships. Unfortunately, one digression I see with Gen Z gals compared to millennial gals is, to me, it seems that millennial gals were just full-on programmed in totally nefarious manner. They just bought everything that they were sold by the big corporations, by media. Whereas with Gen Z gals, what it seems like more is they're seeking creature comforts. They're seeking the top percentage of guys, not necessarily believing these culture agendas, but they want comfort and they want a lifestyle that they see. This obviously is very difficult for most Gen Z guys to provide because they don't have the majority of the wealth. They have a small percentage, especially in places like the US and Canada. I read a stat recently that baby boomers own half of the houses in America. Half of the houses. It's unbelievable. This is unlike most countries. The age group would be younger that would own the majority of the homes. This is what I mean. It's so bad also because all this like race baiting that you see now, and guys now that actually promote this reparations standard for younger guys, even though those guys don't even control most of the wealth. They don't make very good incomes, but yet they're pushed down the most of any group. Just like millennials, they're beat it out. This is why I say, do you want to try fight against something or run towards something that actually likes you, that likes your type of belief system, your people? And this is where Russia is a phenomenal country to go to. Any guy here can find something that will work for him, and even if you don't care at all about dating or relationships or anything, you're still going to live in a society where you're not going to be hated as a European person. You're not just simply going to be taxed like there's no tomorrow. And if you dislike and really hate the taxes in a society, it's actually more capitalist in a country like Russia. You're not going to have to pay for all those single mommies. Your taxes are so low, they don't cover those kind of expenditures, typically speaking. But like I said, many European countries are on the decline. The population size, not a lot of opportunity to make money, and just the culture agendas are so nefarious. Yeah, you could go to Poland or go to Serbia somewhere. Is it really viable though if you're a foreign guy? And this is another big problem, and this is why Russia is often a better option. In a lot of these countries, you look at Czech republics, look at Hungary or Serbia or Latvia, these countries can be terrific, even now for Gen Z guys, for their dating their own women. If they have some status, they don't need to be like super baller or super Chad, but for foreign guys, it's often a different story. In these countries, the gals are usually less desiring of foreign guys. They're smaller countries also, so a smaller number of younger gals to go around. What you'll find, like in Russia, it has more of an international mentality. There's more receptiveness to foreign guys, whether you're in Moscow, Novosibirsk, in Samara, anywhere around the country. You can be in any decent sized city and you'll see a high level of receptivity. Unlike many Central European countries and definitely Western European countries, there's not this same kind of open-mindedness, because some people do bring this up. Oh, well, I know this guy and he has a girlfriend or wife that's Gen Z. Well, yeah, but is he from the country or is he coming from abroad? And sadly enough, what you see in like countries like in Central Europe often is that the gals would prefer kind of like a Tyrone, a kind of the rapper guy. But if you're just a decent, well put together guy that is solid, that's self-responsible, that's white, they often don't really care for that as much because they can just get one of their own guys. Or like if they say they're in Hungary, they're in Latvia, they can go and get a German guy or an Austrian guy that's like much closer, that has a life established in a country that's much nearer to them. These are all factors to remember. Russia is so far away even from Central Europe, especially if you get over to like the mountains to Central Russia. No matter what, it's going to be far in the distance. Whether you're coming from the US or you're coming from Germany, you're going to still have to travel really far to date a gal living in that region. So it doesn't really make any difference in that sense. That's usually how the gal will view it. So these are all factors to keep in mind. I actually see more guys from places like in Africa, South America that have lived in Russia for 5 years, 20 years, 30 years than I would see in places like Germany, Czech Republic, Latvia, those places. So it clearly shows you this international perspective that I speak on here. The mindset of being kind of like how America was 100, 200 years ago, a big empire that accepted groups from all these different countries, different colonies of the world, and you could go and settle there and probably find a girlfriend, a wife, and just have a great life. That's all. What you're really wanting to do is just seek a good life. You can make a lot of money in Russia. You can be a very positive and happy person And always note this, that there is greener grass on the other side, which is something people like to downplay nowadays. But this is my insight here to everyone here, and I look forward to your feedback. Thank you.